in the park. Hello, hello. How much? $60? Look what huge columns of pure marble. With the classic view of Pyongyang from the hotel room window, the morning of the fourth day was beginning, which would focus on visiting iconic places in the capital. After having the usual breakfast, I had time to take a quick look at a military-themed magazine that was on our floor, available for the hotel guests. This 2023 magazine was entirely in Korean, unlike the English-language newspapers for foreigners. There were various images of the annual military parade where you could see interesting things like tractors with trailers full of machine guns, but there were also images of Marshal Kim Jong-un inspecting military facilities. After taking the glass elevator down with views of the island and having our temperature checked in the hotel lobby, we got on the bus and headed to our first stop on today's itinerary. On the way, we saw propaganda posters again, wide avenues and government buildings, as well as people squatting and weeding the sidewalks by hand, or young pioneers on their way to school. A few minutes later, we made a quick stop in the same flower shop from the first day. According to what the guide told us, it's because this is the only place where they accept foreign currency. And once we bought the flowers, we were ready to continue on to the Liberation Monument. This monument is located on Morabong Hill, in the heart of Pyongyang, near the Great Monument on Mansudae Hill, or the Chojima Movement statue that we saw on the first day. The monument, inaugurated in 1946 and consisting of an obelisk topped with a red star, stands as a symbol of the alliance between the Soviet Union and North Korea. During the struggle against the Japanese occupation, just a few months after the triumphant entry of the Red Army into Berlin and the capitulation of the German army, the Soviets declared war on Japan. On August 8, 1945, a couple of days after the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, they then launched the operation, called August Storm, which aimed to carry out a swift and decisive offensive against the Japanese army in the Manchuria and Northern Korea region, and which was considered successful. In just a few days, Soviet forces managed to liberate much of Northern Korea. The monument was a popular pilgrimage site for North Koreans until the fall of the Soviet Union, and it gives us an idea of the collaboration that existed between these two countries. Although it had its ups and downs over the decades, the Soviets played an important role in supplying energy, machinery, weaponry, and technology, among other things. Beyond economic and military aspects, the cooperation between the two countries encompassed politics, culture, and social organization, with visible aspects still present today. This one here that I have behind me is the monument dedicated to the Soviet soldiers who helped in 1945 to end the Japanese Empire and to establish the path to independence and freedom, as they say, to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. You can see on this side, they're already celebrating the victory, and on the other side, they're calling to action, fighting, struggling. Here in this case, Korean citizens are thanking the Soviet soldiers. There's also a Soviet flag along with the flag of North Korea. Here you can see what it says. Eternal glory to the Soviet Army, which helped liberate the Korean people from the Japanese imperialists and open their path to independence and freedom. August 15, 1945. Before continuing, the guide agreed to show us on his mobile phone the app used for online shopping. A kind of North Korean Amazon. Remember that Korea's common internet network is closed, without access to the global internet we all use. It's called Kwamnyong, which means brilliant in Spanish. And within this network, e-commerce seems to have gained popularity in recent years, although there are at least two precedents of e-commerce. The Chojima opened in 2007 with Chinese help, and the Malmunsang, meaning store of 10,000 items, inaugurated in 2016. This one we saw, I wouldn't know which is. What you can see is that all kinds of items are sold, from beauty products like creams, makeup, or even what seem to be imitations of Lancome brand perfumes. for 141, slightly under €1 at the official exchange rate. Also mobile phones with foldable active matrix organic light emitting diode screens, pharmacy products, clothes, shoes, flowers, smartwatches, desks, furniture, or bank advertisements. In the pharmacy section, you could see categories like women's health, gastric health, newly arrived medicines, highly effective healthy foods, and even a line of patriotic medicine. There were also what looked like ticket to shows and ads with eye-catching fonts and colors, although I couldn't really tell what they were about. In some cases, it even showed the number of views that post had received. Some of them had tens of thousands. Due to the country's isolation, it's not very clear how the payment system works through these apps. It's believed to be through payment cards or methods controlled by the state, but what is known and can be observed is that the use of smartphones is becoming more and more widespread. Most are produced by state-owned companies in North Korea or imported in parts and carefully assembled within the country. With this, they make sure that even though they have features similar to modern smartphones, their functionality is limited. They come with pre-installed apps for news, ebooks, or games and are set up to connect to the national mobile internet. Koreolink has been active since 2008. It's a joint venture between Horascom Telecom Egypt and the Korea Telecommunications Corporation. After viewing the monument, let's take a short walk through Pyongyang Central Park. And it's clear that they always take us wherever they want, because it's a set path, they never leave you alone at any moment, there are always two people watching. But what I mean is that you can still see scenes of everyday life here which aren't staged, let's say. They don't prepare everything in detail. You can see grandmothers sitting and talking to us, saying words to us in Russian, then other grandmothers playing whatever, and then pioneers also drawing, scenes that are part of the daily life here as well. It's curious that you usually see many of them, just like in the hotel. These kinds of buildings that look abandoned, even though they're used, seem kind of semi-abandoned. And this one here, the one behind me, is also in the middle of the park, but you can see there are people, I don't know, doing their own things. And look, the guy just told me that this is a wall from the 6th century. No, sorry, from the 16th century. Shishnachto, a defensive wall at the top of the park. You can even see groups of Korean tourists who come here to have the park shown to them by their guide, dressed in traditional clothing. I've noticed a detail. The pioneers and even the adults always walk in pairs, often holding hands like this. That I think it's something they are raised up with, right? It's a tradition and order, since a young age. From here, from this view at the top of the park, from this pagoda, the park is full of them. In the background, you can see another one. We can see the bridge, the television tower. And then something very interesting, the huge stadium is currently in use. The score is 2-0, as you can see. The thing is that the stadium has no spectators at all. I think it's very interesting that anybody can use the stadium, I guess. The other day they were also watching a game, but I mean, maybe it's not the league. I don't know. I guess regular teams are playing. And the spectators, well, with no spectators, perhaps a single person visible in the distance. Here we have the school children of Pyongyang, all well uniformed with almost identical backpacks. There was a tense moment there as I approached the food stall, because I wanted to show you what you can eat here. And right away, the lady that was selling said, "No, no, no, no," just like that. And she called the guide and whispered something like, "Damn, tense moments." I thought, what's going to happen? And nothing. In the end, the guide said, "It doesn't matter if you're showing the products, it's fine. But sure, you still feel that tension." Damn, you could cut it with a knife. That's how tense some people are. They are very suspicious of tourists and what they do. Here's the map of the park. As you can see, this type of structure is always seen on propaganda posters, only here it's taken up by the map. These concrete blocks are where the banners are placed, and you can see them all over the city. Over there, next to the map, there's a sort of dovecote with little dogs and pigeons. Look, we've come across a wedding photo shoot here. Newlyweds in traditional Korean outfits. These must be the witnesses, and there you have the bride and groom.
What the hell does someone do to technology?
He's got the earpiece there, the guy, and his cell phone. This has been the walk through the little park. Very nice, lots of life. You see many groups of kids, young people, and some soldiers who wouldn't allow filming, likely serving their military draft. And also the school children and the elderly. Even a wedding. That's what a park looks like here in Pyongyang. Once we finished our walk through the Morambong Youth Park, we headed to our next destination, the Victorious War Museum, or the Museum of the Victorious Fatherland Liberation War.
A classic of guided tours in the capital.
It was already close to noon, and this is how it looked. One of the main avenues with hardly any traffic except for a few buses and the occasional car. Pedestrians and cyclists on the streets, and residential buildings with facades of different colors. Everything, as always, extremely clean and orderly. We passed by the Russian embassy, where a group of people were intently reading the information posters on the bulletin board, possibly about recent developments in bilateral relations. We just arrived at the Liberation Museum. I'm not sure if that's the exact name, but it's the museum they have dedicated to it. As you can see, it's about the war and the end of the war against South Korea from 1950 to 1953 with the stars, the North Korean flag, and soldiers on both sides. They just did a metal check on us at the entrance. You also can't bring cigarettes or a lighter. Smoking is prohibited. The first thing you see is the 1993 inauguration inscription. The space is huge, a giant square, and in the back the statue of the soldiers, and further behind the museum. Look at the statues, very much in the Soviet style. What you see here, the soldier with the stick, and the other with this weapon, it's a system that was developed for good. According to what we've been told, it was used to destroy enemy planes, and a stick was used. With this Soviet-made weapon, whose name escapes me now, they aimed at the sky to shoot down the planes. It's a system invented by Kim Il-sung, the first leader, the great leader, and it's very famous here in Korea. Now we've entered what appear to be trenches. Look at all the trophies they have from the United States of America. Different trucks, different weapons, cannons. This whole area is full of American war trophies from the United States. You can see the little white star. They start with cannons and then amphibious boats, tanks, a huge amount of weaponry displayed here. There are even some pretty explicit photos, as you can see, of fallen soldiers. All the weapons and objects on display have their corresponding plaques, with the year of production and the year they were captured. They even have planes on display here, completely destroyed but still reconstructed, like this one here, the AD-4. There you have the photo of how it looked before it was destroyed. Airplanes played a very important role in this war, and their destruction was rewarded with honors. Navy planes that would take off from aircraft carriers. Look, Navy, it's insane. There are so many of them. There are about 20 planes here on display, no exaggeration. And here you have all the bombs, the projectiles that were dropped from these planes. They even have an American spy ship here that sneaked into North Korean waters. And again, they present it as a trophy. They even have some plaques here, a board showing the moment when they captured the crew, and now we're going to visit it. Look, for a research vessel with those machine guns, they were well protected. Here, you have the kitchen and the living room to eat. Ah, I don't see it. It's from that time. Wow, was it an explosion or a star? Stars, stars, stars. Look at all the equipment they had. Here, a room full of listening devices, the Americans full of gadgets, of radios, radar. That looks like, look, top secret, forbidden, an encryption machine, a whole room, huh? With these systems of intelligence. The capture of the town caused a serious diplomatic crisis within the framework of the so-called Silent War, where incursions and low-intensity clashes occurred frequently. One American crew member was killed in the armed clashes between the crew and North Korean forces, and the remaining 82 crew members ended up as captives for 11 months, until Washington formally declared that the Pueblo ship had been carrying out espionage activities in North Korean waters. Although he later retracted this confession, right after they took us to visit the museum, a gigantic building that rises imposingly at the end of the territory. Right in front of the museum, a statue with a soldier of the Korean People's Army in a call to action pose while holding up his country's flag, flanked in turn by other sculptures with more soldiers in action. Where the flow of visitors, especially the young pioneers with their characteristic red scarf tied around their necks, never stops. The constant influx of locals and the systematization of these and other visits, guided tours so that all the inhabitants can see it, at least once in their lifetime. It gives us an idea of how important they are for maintaining, with unbreakable foundations, the North Korean vision of the conflict within this hermetic society. On the facade of the museum, there are various reliefs that evoke different phases of the war, and you can see tanks in them. Elderly people, children and farmers fighting soldiers, shooting down planes, carrying out acts of sabotage, all with the Workers' Party emblem and the flag on the sides. You can even see a bronze statue where a war veteran merges in a salute with a child, symbolizing the transfer of the country's defense between generations. Filming was prohibited inside the museum, just like in other monuments we had visited. So the images you see are either provided by the travel agency or found on the internet. High ceilings, 2 staircases, columns and marbles of different shades made up the lobby, on whose central wall stands a huge statue of the leader Kim Il-sung. On the second floor, there are portraits of different generals and other Soviet military figures. They preside over the ascent up the staircase above the entrance and occasionally along the corridor walls. We came across more reliefs depicting soldiers in action, which emphasize the heroism of their deeds. We continued through the museum with a screening of a short documentary about the war and a visit to different rooms, where, among other things, the camps of the North Korean soldiers were depicted. How were they organized? How did they fight from the trenches and destroy tanks and airplanes? With more sculptures and figures of soldiers and portraits of Kim Il-sung, the constant presence of the defeated American enemy and South Korea's allies. This was reflected in several rooms, some with representations of gray battlefields, where destruction and abandoned weapons staged the enemy's surrender, whose lifeless bodies were being devoured by crows. In another room, the suffering of women and children at the hands of their enemies was mixed with images of resistance from the weakest and most innocent. What caught my attention the most about these images is that I didn't find any image depicting South Korean soldiers fighting against North Koreans. All the weight of the enemy falls on the United States and its Western allies. Finally, They took us to a circular room where there was a 360-degree panoramic model handmade by the artist from the prestigious Mansudae studio,
Where you could see it in an animated way with the help of a narrator and sound and light effects.
the development of the Battle of Taeyong, which pitted the Korean People's Army against the United States Army at the dawn of the war. After photographing with the museum guide, who spoke fluent Russian, we returned to the bus. The trip to the next stop took longer than usual, around 20-30 minutes. So we had the chance to see some parts of the city that we hadn't seen before. The same goes for the propaganda posters, where you could read messages like, "Let's shine brightly with the transformational achievements we've been proud of this year," or this composition of 3 posters, where you could read slogans like, "For the strengthening of national power and national prestige abroad, for the well-being of the people," along with others depicting the success of a satellite launch, socialist system achievements, and progress. There are also others calling to fulfill the party's plans, where peasants, soldiers, scientists, and workers merge into one, with their heads held high and in a hopeful pose. As we advanced, trolleybus stops receded on one side of our window. Buildings under construction and metro stations with a constant flow of people, though not overcrowded, where watching the pedestrians made it clear that the humidity and heat of the day were suffocating, as shown by the number of fans and parasols carried by the Koreans, and as we ourselves could confirm every time we got off the bus. More street food and drink stalls where groups of Koreans could be seen having something to eat and chatting calmly. It felt like the pace of life isn't as hectic as in other big cities around the world. From my vantage point, I recorded a scene I had witnessed before, a woman strolling with her companion dog,
Which shows us that something is changing in a society like Korea's.
Before parking, we passed through an older neighborhood with potholes and damaged asphalt. Unlike the newer areas we had seen earlier, this is Kwangbok Avenue, which translates as restoration of light or rebirth. You can see large residential buildings of different shapes and colors with some street stalls. It was built in the 1980s to commemorate the 70th anniversary of President Kim Il-sung's birth. And it has 5 lanes in each direction, although there were very few cars driving along with the occasional tram. Since the avenue is so wide, in some sections it felt like an open space. They've promised us a new eating technique, a Korean plof, which is something like rice with meat and vegetables. They're going to take our temperature as always. Thank you for watching the video, thank you. Like in every place we go, there's the corresponding souvenir shop, the gift shop. Here you can see the pins. I think that's jade. And the magnets, I'm not sure if I showed them before. And also that's always there. The cutlery set, don't forget the one for tea. These Korean vases are truly artistic. The paintings and vases are beautiful, honestly. The types of Lego you can find, all of them are war-related fighter jets. This is the turtle ship, I think. Then you have more tanks over here, and here again the turtle ship, or is it a dragon? More tanks, of course, and anti-aircraft systems on top of ballistic missiles. Korean Lego. Hey, well, it doesn't look bad, huh? Could they contact Lego and do a collaboration? How much? $60 on this one?
40?
And this one? $20. $20. Yes, thank you, thank you. Here you have the restaurant, this smaller one with a karaoke television too, of course, and the rice beer. A piano too. There's always a piano in these restaurants. Many of these restaurants we go to look like wedding restaurants. The bride and groom's table is always set up separately from the rest of the guests' seating. Look, in this case, with white popcorn among the flowers. They served us some battered shrimp, then also the typical pressed rice, which is like their typical bread, and well, some vegetables like that. Let's go with the shrimp. It's like an egg flan. Well, this is the food. A little bit of sweet and sour pork. The plof, which has a bit of omelette. Then I think these are seaweed. also bean sprouts or, I don't know, some similar kind of plant, and meat with spicy seasonings. Be cautious when eating with non-wooden chopsticks, as they can be very difficult to use.
I've already dropped my food 3 or 4 times on this trip and I've gotten dirty.
Ladies and gentlemen, the much-awaited moment is here. The visit to the Pyongyang subway. Let's go there.
I've taken a look at the station's lobby. We went through without a token, but you have to pay a token, a little coin to get through, even though all the turnstiles are open. We're going to enter one of the deepest subways in the world. Look over there at the station chief Al Chavalito. Construction began in 1969 and the first station was completed in 1973, so it's a relatively old subway from the Soviet era. The vault's construction is typical, and the escalators are similar to those found in any capital city. Ex-Soviet, and yes, the escalators are really long. Halfway down these long stairs, we've been descending for over a minute already. Look how far it goes. It's huge. The lighting, curiously, it comes out of the escalators, not from the ceiling or the middle of the escalators. Like in the Moscow metro. And here, yes, we've already arrived at the platform. This curious booth resembles those in ex-Soviet metros, but it's currently unmanned. It appears to be a control booth. For the escalators. Here we go. The citizens of Pyongyang, the guides are rushing us. We shouldn't fall behind. It must be around 4 in the afternoon, more or less. People are already heading home, I imagine to their houses after the workday. That's how the hallways look. Look at those little lamps with a flower drawn on them. And of course the classic marble. It's a must-have. The subway system has 2 main lines, the Choima line and the Hyeoksin line, which together add up to about 22 kilometers of tracks. And 17 stations. Some of them reach depths of up to 110 meters, and their architectural design shows a clear Soviet influence, as I mentioned before. The stations are adorned with chandeliers, murals, and mosaics depicting patriotic and revolutionary themes, using materials like marble and granite. This gives it that majestic and monumental appearance, like a palace for the people. Additionally, in its corridors you can see armored doors, allowing the stations and the metro system to function as a shelter in case of emergency. Although there are no official passenger figures, it is estimated that hundreds of thousands of Koreans use it every day. Similarly, rumors suggest the existence of secret metro tunnels for high-ranking regime officials. There is no verifiable information to confirm it. The train cars were imported from China and the Soviet Union in the 1970s and from East Germany in the 1990s. They are still in use today. They are green and red. When the train cars arrived in the mid-1970s, all inscriptions and factory references were removed, though business was conducted with the outside world. At that time, the government's policies were emphasizing North Korea's self-sufficiency, and it was important to emphasize that everything was made or assembled in Korea. However, in 2015, the first fully Korean-made train cars began to be produced, gray and black, with a red stripe. With the goal of modernizing the train fleet, they are equipped with more advanced technology and offer greater comfort to passengers. Similar to other developed countries, the first station, Pujung, where we only stayed for a few moments because the guides were rushing us, it means prosperity, characterized by elegant chandeliers. And the murals where farmers, workers, and other laborers smile under the guidance of leader Kim Il-sung. Of course, they're rushing us, but take a look, it's full of mosaics there. Like workers in the background? From factories. We're waiting for them to give the signal, the station chiefs. And those amazing lamps they have, they're spectacular. You'll see girls like this. Red armbands are prevalent throughout the metro, including in train cars, worn by volunteers or paid workers. And their main function ranges from making sure that the rules of civility are followed to supervising the behavior of passengers. They also aid with train entry and exit at stations, cleaning tasks, and passenger assistance. The inscriptions on the armband usually identify their role and sometimes the name of the unit they belong to.
They have brought us here to another station. Beautiful. We've gone to one station, that's all, from where we got on.
It is 80 meters long, the longest of the stations.
And according to what the guide says, these little lamps here evoke fireworks. The mosaics you see on both sides of the platform. They are 80 meters long, huge. With the gardens of Pyongyang? Look at those massive columns, please. Pure marble. Beautiful, just beautiful. Look, pay attention. Every time it stops at the station, it seems to me that one of the drivers, the pilot and co-pilot, and he comes out through here. At the end of the platform, you have a mosaic of Kim Jong-il, also huge, where you have to take a photo, always with your arms at your sides and straight. Now we are in the old car, green and red. Observe the intricate details of the mosaics visible from this window. And there behind me you can see the portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Look, the chair is quite comfortable. Look at the plywood, this typical wood. You don't see any ads or screens. So this is one of the first train cars? All the tourists here, taking pictures like crazy. I don't know what the Koreans must think. The portraits of the leaders are found in each of the cars of the Pyongyang metro trains. Placed above the door of the car, these portraits are in the metro. Because it is considered by Koreans as a type of railway transport, and according to their rules, the portraits of the leaders must be present. The height and distance at which they must be placed is precisely described in their regulations. Just as you can see them in the subway, you won't find them in other transportation modes like buses, trolleybuses, or trams. In addition to being placed in government buildings, institutions, or railways, they are also found in every house. The portraits must always be clean and shiny. There are even cleaning kits sold to keep them clean with their own special cloth. The neighborhood chiefs I mentioned in other chapters are responsible for checking house by house to make sure the portraits are present and in good condition. As a symbol of loyalty to the regime, under the curious gaze of some passengers, like some grandmothers who greeted us and started talking with us. We continued our ride through the Pyongyang metro for 3 stations without stopping: Ponggwa, Seongri, and Tongil, which mean flame, victory, and reunification, respectively. In them, you can see murals depicting everyday scenes that emphasize the importance of work, revolutionary themes, patriotic subjects, or the hope for a change. A reunified Korea, given the worsening relations between both Koreas and the current leader's policy of non-reunification. This last station underwent a name change just a few months ago, and it's unclear how they will remodel it now that reunification is no longer being pursued. With the neighbors to the south, Puente El offers alternatives. We've passed 3 or 4 stations, but here again is a mosaic featuring Korean workers and soldiers. Spectacular. Look at the detail. Here, in every station, you also have a place to read the newspaper. Here, with some display cases, like this gentleman here is doing. And here you have the statue, which seems to be made of bronze, of the ideologue of the Huk movement. Marxism adapted to the Korean style, a kind of native Korean Marxism from here. The guide tells me that this is when he gave his triumphant speech in 1945. At every station, there are 3 or 4 girls on each part of the platform. As we conclude our tour of the Metro 3 stations, it's evident that the place is crowded, with numerous people behind me. The metro runs from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. And the price is ridiculous. It's 151, which is about 0.015 cents of a dollar. Look at the Arch of Triumph, the tower dedicated to the Juche ideas, the clock, nothing digital, and the corridors of this station. This is an exciting moment for me. I'm a lover of Soviet metros, a small metro system, but it has the pure Soviet essence. Look at these beautiful little shops here with books. The girl picking out her notebooks. Another little shop closed. Look beautiful.
Look at the TVs they have up here. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Most of the Korean passengers either just stare or walk by, but they don't pay much attention.
Some are very kind and let you sit in their seat. They try to interact in some way, but not much, not beyond 2 or 3 words. The feeling, I'm not going to lie to you, is like a visit to the zoo or something like that. Hey, how curious. There they leave the tickets, people give them to her, but the turnstiles are open.
In the station, today's date is shown with the year 113, which is our 2024, the 113th year of the Yusha era.
And then the subway symbol up there and the station number. I think the guide is being asked how many tickets he has bought. Look how curious. The passengers have just left. The guy inside closed the door and put up the barrier. I have the guide here watching like a hawk and the beautiful Arc de Triomphe. Closed. Hello, hello, hello. Wow, what a swarm of kids.
What do they feel when they see someone like this with a beard with a Western face?
Hello, look, eating an ice cream?
You have all kinds of little shops here at the exit of the metro, which is also the exit of the soccer stadium. The kids, of course, have no shame at all like the adults do. Some of them don't even want to greet you or come near you.
Look, the guide went out of his way and brought the whole bus here.
Small ice creams not typically sold to tourists, usually only purchasable with Korean currency. Let's try it.
This one is banana. There was cherry peach. Cheers. Damn, it's really good. I thought it was going to be powdery, but no, it's real ice cream. Real ice cream.
Really?
Damn. Delicious. 100% beer, no rice at all.
You can see that this looks a lot like what the pioneers who taught us before do.
That's insane. This bottle cost $750.76.